Sup fuckers? This week I want to do something different and review the latest releases from Hobo Johnson. That is, The Revenge of Hobo Johnson and Hobo Johnson Alienates his fanbase. Usually I don't do music reviews on this channel, however these two albums are getting so much unjustified flack and I just want to try to balance the discourse. So Hobo Johnson is a rapper musician that became somewhat famous overnight after uploading a backyard live performance with his band, the Lovemakers, onto YouTube as an entry into the NPR contest. Though they did not win the contest, the video was popular enough that the Lovemakers performed at NPR's Tiny Desk, which is still among my favorite Tiny Desk performances.
And every sting from every teardrop, from every ring at every pawn shop.
His first album, The Rise of Hobo Johnson, had already been out for a while at this point and contains many of his most well-known songs, such as Romeo and Juliet and Peach Scone. What really struck me about his first work was that it felt like it came from an economically low-class culture. It sounded like it was recorded between couches that he was crashing on. Hobo Johnson did get his name from being homeless and living in his car after getting kicked out of his dad's house when he was 18. Hence this album was very relatable to me, as most music, because of the way the music industry is, usually comes from a wealthier class of people that can afford high productions and perfected instrumentation, etc, etc. I'm also a big fan of local band mixtapes and lo-fi shit. Like, I used to be in a band and I was able to acquire a collection of demos and mixtapes from artists that the majority of people never heard of. Maybe I'll show you sometime. Now, I wouldn't say that I grew up low class. It's really hard to say. Like, I've scavenged parking lots for decent cigarette butts. I've had to walk 2+ hours to my minimum wage job because I couldn't afford the $2 bus ticket. I've sold shoplifted candy bars for drug money, and I have broken down and sobbed over a head of lettuce going bad. All that being said, I've been fortunate enough to keep a roof over me and my partner's head, and thankfully I have not yet needed to set up a tent with the people who live outside my apartment building. I've always felt alienated from my peers who can afford art materials and vehicles. Like, this is my gamer chair. I snagged it from being thrown in the dumpster from my school a few years ago. So once Hobo Johnson came out with his second album, The Fall of Hobo Johnson, there was an evident boost in production. The compositions more complex, the instrumentation more varied, and the lyrics reflected his new position of moderate wealth and success. This boost in production I believe to be a large contributor to the album's high praise, even to many people who Johnson is just not to their taste. Though I thought the album was fine, admittedly it did not resonate with me the same way his previous work did. It is inevitable that once someone becomes successful for their low-class vibes, that success will take that vibe away. On tracks such as Subaru Crosstrek, there is much reflection on what modern success is like and how many of the problems he had previously never went away. But it was still hard for me to relate to seeing Hobo now in new tailored clothes and rapping about getting a new car. The album felt like it was trying to reach a broader audience by appealing to middle-class sensibilities. Many of the tracks felt like it would be well suited for angry white boy teens who drive their mom's car blasting Oliver Tree or something. This shift in class I feel is most evident in the music video for Typical Story, which just screams high-budget LA detached, tone-deaf culture. Although Hobo Johnson said that he wasn't happy with that music video either, he didn't really have direction of it. But my point still stands. Again, the album is enjoyable, but it really left me wondering what's next for Hobo Johnson. He strikes me as a very honest lyricist, so will he continue to lose relatability as time moves him further from his roots? Many critics felt like The Fall was still too fringe and cringe, and wanted to see an even higher quality album to rival it. Nearly 2 years later comes The Revenge of Hobo Johnson. And this album subverted expectations, to say the least. Many trashed this album for its minimalist compositions, its greater use of backing band vocals, guitars with less electronic presence. All these factors which got the album hate is actually what I adore about the album. Before I read any review or listened to any others' opinions on the album, I felt refreshed by this album's rawness. It really felt like he just jammed these tracks with his band in one take and really emulated that feeling of a live show, which is almost always destroyed by the way records are produced nowadays. Everything's just perfected and tailored. To me, this album feels like a rejection of what his so-called success awarded him, as he expressly states in his lyrics that it did not help relieve him of his depression. While critics such as Anthony Fantano labeled this album as not good, especially compared to The Fall of Hobo Johnson, I couldn't disagree more. This album is my favorite studio recording of his, and I've listened to it more times than any other of his works. I do have to rebuke a couple specific criticisms that Fantano brings up that I take special grievances with. One is that a prequel to Animal Farm adds nothing and is pointless. I agree that a book, like a written novel, prequel to Animal Farm, would probably be boring. However, the song is emotionally compelling. The book begins with a pig's speech to all the animals that laid the foundations of revolutionary ideation and planning to the farm workers. Though it is clear that the animals live miserable, exploited lives, the prequel really puts you in that hopeless position with no change in sight. The ending of this song is really heartbreaking, as the protagonist pig dies and hears another being born. And so even in the last moments of his life, he is affirmed that the cycle of exploitation will continue endlessly. This reinforces the tragedy of Animal Farm to greater empathize that many generations lived and died hopeless, bleak, and exploited lives. The second point he makes is toward the song So You Want a Baby, which is a song expressing doubts about the process of passing on his generational trauma and whether there will be a future to even grow up in. Anthony says this.
I also kind of disagree with the premise of You Want a Baby, which, I mean, I get and I understand the concern of not wanting to have a child in this horrible world that we live in. The world is shit. People are horrible, but you know, here's the fact of the matter. The world's always been trash. It's always looked like we've been doomed, and humans have always been trash as well.
I disagree that the world has always been shit. This is a colonial myth. Many cultures lived free of war and poverty before they were murdered by the culture that now is destroying all hope for any future. Anthony says the future has always seemed bleak, but the data about climate change came out in the 70s. Before the 70s, most people, though their lives may be awful, always had hope for future generations could be free. Climate change is destroying that possibility. Resource scarcity is a certainty at this point, as capitalism has secured the cataclysmic 1.5 degree rise in global temperatures and is not showing any signs of slowing down, as wealthy politicians are lobbied to drag their feet. We are literally staring extinction in the fucking face. Anthony's shit take borders on climate denial. This is also ironically akin to the horrible phrase, "That's just life," that Hobo Johnson referred to in the prequel to Animal Farm. Right over his head, I guess. The last track on the album teases a new album called Hobo Johnson Alienates his Fanbase, which shows that Hobo Johnson knew that many would not like his new direction. The teaser showcased snippets of this supposed album, silly songs such as All I See Is Poop and What's the AQI of This Bong Rip. To my and many others' surprise, less than a week ago, he actually released this album, with all the tracks promised. Again, most reviews thus far are negative. A big criticism of this album is that for a comedy album, there is too much serious subject matter, but I don't think this is a comedy album. This album, though it is certainly meant to be a troll album in some respects, it also has some incredibly honest lyrics about his view and mental state. A lot of people online are seething at the existence of this album, but honestly it is the most fun I've had listening to an album since Inside by Bo Burnham, which is also comedic and very serious. I think there are a lot of people who don't understand left turns in music careers. Sometimes it's just musicians switching genres, and other times it is an intentional career move to shake fame. Notable examples include Neil Young's dark albums after Harvest, Nirvana's In Utero after Nevermind, and of course, MGMT's self-titled album. These albums are characterized by being purposely off-putting, either by being quiet and gloomy, or by being loud and noisy and just fucking disgusting. I've enjoyed these somewhat abject works more than their more celebrated works because it represents a truer reflection of the artist who cannot continue the uptight, highly manicured cascade of their pop hits.
Hey, this shit is just a big ass joke. Getting rich is like a glimmer of hope that dies. And it dies fast.
That's why I think it is nonsensical that some have purported that Hobo Johnson is a CIA psyop to make socialism look bad. The intention is not to get a catchy revolutionary song on the radio like fucking Nickelback attempted to do, pathetically I might add. The point is to de-escalate both fame and the high pressure of the industry to pump out more and more highly marketable hits. Siren. The outros to these albums directly reference this commodification of the artist by record companies and parodies early promos for albums that were designed to hype up the success and projected sales of future titles, such as this Beach Boys promo for the never-released album Smile in the 1960s.
Smile is the name of the new Beach Boys album, which will be released in January 1967. And with the happy album cover, the really happy sounds inside, and a happy in-store display piece, you can't miss. We're sure to sell 1 million units in January.
Hobo Johnson is not Eminem or Drake or even Mac Miller for that matter. Like, I don't think we should be expecting A-list collabs in the future. I'm just really inspired by the energy of just doing what you want and subverting expectations. I could really use more of that energy in my life, to be honest. With all that being said, these albums aren't for everyone. Hobo Johnson isn't for everyone. If you listen to his vocals and cringe, then all that means is that you don't vibe with it. Many of my favorite vocalists are frequently criticized for having intolerable vocals, such as Geddy Lee and Gord Downie and Neil Young even. All get shat on for their unique vocal style. The point I'm trying to make here is that I think Hobo Johnson is Canadian. To conclude, I applaud the new direction Hobo Johnson is taking, and I look forward to where he will take us next. The outro to the last album teased a future experimental album titled Hobo Johnson Loves Sounds. Though I think this time he is joking, but even if he isn't, I really wouldn't mind. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Give me a thumbs up if you did. Let me know if you like hearing me talk about music, and let me know what your thoughts on all this are. Also, what are some unpopular albums and things you enjoy? Salvia. Thank you to all my patrons for your continued support. If you would like to become a Salvia-inspired interbeing yourself, then you can sign up at Patreon on any tier. Tune in next week when I will be discussing the political position of Terence McKenna. Probably. Most likely. Probably. Alright everyone, sincerely thank you for watching. Stay safe and take care.
All I see is poop. The world's fucking shit. I'm a piece of shit too. Yeah, literally just poop. It fucking stinks, yo. I smell like a zoo. Yo, everyone around me. Everything I touch. Everyone I see. Everything I feel.